Namaskar and a warm good morning to one and all. I am your anchoring host, Dr. Shailesh Rajaras, Chairman, Department of Studies and Research in Journalism and Mass Communication. At the outset, I welcome you all to the educational hub and the cultural capital of Karnataka, the royal city of Mysuru. Ladies and gentlemen, the future academic prospect of higher education lies in the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research studies. In fact, University Grants Commission in its national education policy has emphasized and set guidelines to promote interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research studies. Karnataka State Open University, falling in line with the contemporary UGC trend, has organized a very unique and a significant national seminar. The Department of Studies and Research in English, in association with Department of Studies and Research in Psychology, has jointly organized a premier and a first of its kind two-day national seminar, Prisms of Psychology in the Literary Realm, on November 29th and 30th, apparently today and tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing the history being made. Now, without much ado, I request Vidushi, Dr. Jyoti Shankar from the Kannada department to render the invocation.
ನಮಿಸುವೆನಾದಿಯುಳ್ ವಿಘ್ನವಿನಾಶಕ ಬುದ್ಧಿಪ್ರದಾಯಕ ಮಂಗಳಕಾರಕ ನಮಿಸುವೆನಾದಿಯುಳ್ ವಿಘ್ನವಿನಾಶಕ ಬುದ್ಧಿಪ್ರದಾಯಕ ಮಂಗಳಕಾರಕ ನಮಿಸುವೆ ಶರಣು ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ಪುತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಸದ್ಗುಣಗಾತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ಪುತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಸದ್ಗುಣಗಾತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಭಕ್ತರ ಮಿತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಪವಿತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಭಕ್ತರ ಮಿತ್ರ ಶರಣು ಪವಿತ್ರ ರಿ ರಿ ಸರಿ ರಿ ಸ ನಿ ಸ ಪ ಮ ಗ ಮ ರಿ ಸ ಸರಿ ಗ ಮ ಪ ದ ನಿ ಸ ಸ ನಿ ಪ ಮ ರಿ ರಿ ಸ ನಮಿಸುವೆ ಮುಕ್ಕಂಡ ಶಿವನ ಅಕ್ಕನೆಯ ತನಯ ಷಣ್ಮುಖ ಸೋದರ ಹೇಲಂಬೋದರ ಮುಕ್ಕಂಡ ಶಿವನ ಅಕ್ಕನೆಯ ತನಯ ಷಣ್ಮುಖ ಸೋದರ ಹೇಲಂಬೋದರ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಪ್ರದಾಯಕ ಪೊರೆಯು ಗಣೇಶ ಪಾಲಿಸುವರಗಳ ತತ್ವ ಪ್ರಕಾಶ ಪಾಲಿಸುವರಗಳ ತತ್ವ ಪ್ರಕಾಶ ಪಾಪ ಮವ ಸನಿ ಪ ಮಗ ಮರೇ ರೇ ಸನಿ ಪ ಮಗ ಮರೆ ಸ ಸರಿ ರಿ ಗ ಮ ಗ ಮ ಮ ಬ ಬ ನೀ ಸ ರಿ ಸನಿ ಪ ಸನಿ ಪ ಮಗ ಮರೆ ಸ ನಮಿಸುವೆ ನಾದಿಯುಳ್ ವಿಘ್ನವಿನಾಶಕ ಬುದ್ಧಿಪ್ರದಾಯಕ ಮಂಗಳಕಾರಕ ನಮಿಸುವೆ ಗಣೇಶ ನಮಿಸುವೆ.
Thank you, Vidushi, Dr. Jyoti Shankar. Indeed, that was a wonderful rendition. Now I request Chairperson, Department of Studies and Research in English, Dr. Shrikant, to welcome the August gathering.
Good morning, one and all. At the outset, this is the first seminar that from Department of Studies and Research in English, and even from Department of Studies and Research in Psychology, we are organizing together. You know, these are two different fields, two different interdisciplinary fields, and the very idea of having a seminar on this particular topic, it all started in the month of February. We had a department council meeting, and in that meeting we had discussion about it, and my colleague Dr. Nataraj suggested this title, the broad title, that is Prisms of Psychology in the Literary Realm, and under that we have got 23 sub-themes. You know, to begin with, I am so glad to have Professor Ami Upadhyaya, the Vice Chancellor of Gujarat, Baba Saheb, Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University. Now, I'm so grateful to her because she gave me the time slot, even after all our busy schedule. You know, she hails from political powerhouse that is Gujarat, and she has got a huge nexus, huge political contact, and also she is a workaholic lady, and with a short tenure. She is serving as a Vice Chancellor all the way from 2018, and her term has been extended to 2029 also, till 2029. You just imagine the kind of proficiency or kind of involvement as an academician and or even administrator she has been doing as the Vice Chancellor of Ambedkar Open University, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, Gujarat. And at the same time, I'm also happy to have one more guest, a keynote speaker from Tamil Nadu, that is the Vellore Institute of Technology. Her name is Ajanta Sarkar. You know, madam, she is popular in her research in Freudian theory. And you know, she has done her PhD in Estonia University. And I came to know that she is good at connecting literature with psychology, the field of psychology. I made huge research and I contacted people, and many of them suggested her name. So I thought it is better to have her as a keynote speaker in the inaugural function. And I am thankful for madam for coming here all the way from Vellore. She landed at 12:10 last night, and you can see the energy in her face. And at the same time, we have got our own, again, Dean Academic, Madam Professor Lakshmi Madam, who is also energetic, who is also flamboyant, always smiling. And you know, in the absence of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharnapavi Alse, and also our registrar, I think I do believe that she will fill that vacuum, and again, doesn't make us feel the absence of the two big bosses of the university. You know, at the same time, I am also happy to have one more colleague of mine who is a collaborating partner of mine, and he is the head of the Department of Psychology, Dr. Manjunath. And we had a discussion before planning out or jotting the plan. We had a discussion last year to have a seminar collaborating together, and it was he who gave the idea to have a seminar on this particular topic, interdisciplinary topic, that is psychology and literature. You know, dear friends, and also the media, you know, the importance of these two diverse fields is very much relevant even today. You know, the thing is you might have heard the poem called The Holoman by Eliot, where he says, Mr. Kurtz is dead, he dead. You know, The Holoman is the poem where, again, Eliot speaks about the walking corpses, where he compares the modern people to walking corpses. Where that means what I want to what I want to say, or what I'm trying to connect here is, after 1900, when these theories of psychology uh, came into existence, when Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung proposed their own theories on psychology, it had an impact on literature. It had a huge impact on literature, and the way looking at literature altogether changed. There was a dramatic shift in literature, and most of the novels and even some of the plays enacted on stage focused on some of the psychological aspects. Before that, it was Shakespeare who introduced some of the psychological aspects in his plays, particularly soliloquies, and also a sleepwalking scene, famous sleepwalking scene in the play Macbeth. And the first psychological novel that came into existence in the literary world was like Russian novel, that is Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. It is the first psychological novel in any part of the literature, in any part of the world, in any form of literature. No, it is the first novel that came to existence, and after that, there was no any other novel which focused on psychological aspects. Only after 1900, when these two great psychological theorists gave their own theories to the world, psychological theories, there was this dramatic shift on psychology, and people focused on human brain and the human consciousness. And at the same time, there was also discussion why, because in 21st century this is a dead and dead and gone topic. You can also think about other topics. That is what the people suggested, but still I felt that the topic is very much relevant even now, because we are all spending most of our time on screens, mobile screens. We don't have time to connect people, relatives. We don't have time to connect with our own family members. So you know how the world has changed after a post-pandemic situation. The world has changed a lot, and we don't have time to spend with our own family members. So in that case, I felt like even today there is so much to do, research. There is so much research to do on human psychology, and there is so much scope in literature to focus on human brain, human psychology. And in that case, like, I felt like this topic is very much relevant even today. So with these key points to deliver, I welcome you all for this seminar, 2 days national seminar. People have come from different parts of India, including Orissa, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh. I welcome you all for this 2 days national seminar, and I also welcome the people, paper presenters from Mysore and different parts of our own state, Karnataka, and also the media people, and also our own university colleagues. And I also thank our own competitive exam center head, Satyanarayan sir, for calling upon his aspirants, KSET aspirants, to sit and listen to today's inaugural speech. I welcome you all. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Srikanth, and I also take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Srikanth as well. Welcome to you, Dr. Srikanth. May I now request all the dignitaries on the dais to inaugurate the national seminar by lighting the lamp. Thank you, dignitaries, for the inauguration. I also request the dignitaries to release the national seminar souvenir. Thank you, all the dignitaries. Now, before we begin the inaugural address, I request Dr. Shrikant S. to introduce Professor Ami Upadhyay to the august gathering.
Professor Ami Upadhyaya, currently she is serving as the Vice Chancellor, as the esteemed Vice Chancellor of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar State Open University, Gujarat, since 2018. She holds an impressive academic background with degrees in bachelor's, master's in philosophy, a doctorate degree in English literature, as well as a diploma in naturopathy and yogic science. Professor Upadhyaya is a skilled Indian classical dancer and choreographer. With over 2 decades of experience in the higher education sector, Professor Upadhyaya has contributed her expertise to various committees constituted by MHRD, Ministry of Education, UGC, AIU, NAC, NIOS, State Education Department, Gujarat Sahitya Academy, and numerous state and central universities across India. During her tenure, at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar State Open University, she has achieved numerous accolades, including an A++ accreditation by NAC, which is the only university in Gujarat and the only state open university in India to do so. Under her leadership, the university has also been awarded Category 1 autonomy by the UGC. Upadhyaya has played a pivotal role in the successful implementation of NEP 2020 at Babasaheb State Open University, ensuring its adherence to the highest standards. Professor Upadhyaya has been honored with several prestigious awards, such as the Honorary Fellowship by the Commonwealth of Learning Canada, the Pride of Nation Award, Man Bhai Pat Parishthisht Nagarik Sanman, Award of Honor by CEMCA and IDEA, Lifetime Achievement Award by AIPC, and NGS Vibrant Leadership Awards. She has been instrumental in introducing numerous innovative courses and programs at Babasaheb Ambedkar State Open University. Professor Upadhyaya has got numerous articles in her name published, and also she has participated more than 100 conferences and seminars as a chief guest. You know, madam is a very disciplined, very humble and very kind-hearted lady, and you know, you should appreciate her aesthetic sense. When she reached the university at 11:40 a.m., when I handed over the bouquet, the first thing she appreciated was the flowers. She said, the flowers are too beautiful, and you know, and then I came to know when I saw her profile that she is a classical dancer, and that is the reason why she is able to inculcate that aesthetic sense. And as I told you, she hails from Gujarat, which is a political powerhouse of India, and she is, you believe it or not, I was surprised to hear that she has got only 25 teaching staffs and around 80 non-teaching staffs, and with those minimum staffs, she has been again successfully. She is able to run the university from 2018, and now she has applied for additional posts to the government of Gujarat. Till now, she said like there was no requirement for any kind of post in our university. So with the minimum staff, she is running the university. So I was surprised, because in our university we have got around 100 plus teaching staff, and ours is a huge campus. We have got around 80,000 students and all, but still I was surprised. And madam, like as I told you, is a good administrator and a good academician. I first met her in an online refresher program, and she engaged a class for 1.5 hours. It was she tried to connect literature with classical dance, okay, Indian dances, and she gave a beautiful lecture on that day. So I was very much mesmerized with her lecture on that day itself. So I thought, again, her name got registered in my mind, and I thought like one day or the other, like I should invite her as the guest to our university function. So thank you, madam. So, and this is her brief introduction about Professor Ami Upadhyaya. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrikant, for the introduction. I now request Professor Ami Upadhyay, Vice Chancellor, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar State Open University, Gujarat, to deliver the inaugural address.
The academicians and dignitaries on the dais, equally respected faculties and scholars, students on the other side of the stage dais. It's really a matter of pleasure and privilege to be a part of such a wonderful organized conference, and that also something comparatively the subject close to my heart. But let me correct for a few things, that Gujarat is culturally very sound state. So I will be very thankful if an academic conference or event, Gujarat is addressed as very rich literary, where a writer like Meghani, who is known as Rastriya Shayar, was born and contributed a lot in Indian freedom struggle movement. And many more cultural writers. And yes, one cannot forget my experiments with truth. One of the best literary pieces that Gujarat gifted with Gandhi. So, thank you very much, remembering my state also. But here today I stand as a literary person and a human being that talks about psychology. I'm so happy that in introduction only national education policy is mentioned. So while you were having a glance over my introduction, it was longer than the expected one. I'm a little worried that it might have raised expectations of the listeners from me. What I am today, I humbly say that's the stuff helps rather than the style or the external forces an individual's life. When you say it with minimum staff I've been running, that's a misfortune. I've been trying to get sanctioned post. I've been a little bit succeeding also, so it's not for the first time that we have applied. We have been applying and we have been getting, but what we ask, that suddenly happens. Maybe the state governments have their own, obviously, financial constraints and everything. But yes, the support that we have been getting, and we are trying our level best. But as Shiv Khera says about running of the institute or any other organization, Shiv Khera in his book writes that it is the TQP that matters. That's a total quality people rather than infrastructure. So big infrastructures or big piece of land, they do not make an institution or universities. It is the minds, it is the total quality people that make a university university. And I'm very happy that a small amount of staff members, but they're very committed and they've been working day and night for the university. And in absence of my university member staff, I would say, yes, it's their hard work that has yielded to this NAC A++ or maybe category 1 or 12B or whatever other achievements of the universities are there. I would not fail to remember Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Sharnappa Halseji in his absentia today. Yesterday morning I received a call that due to some very unavoidable circumstances he had to rush to Delhi, so he would not be able to remain present. But somewhere I'm convinced that whether the Vice Chancellor is there or not, the university always reflects the face of him and it's working. So the Vice Chancellor is omnipresent in university. And off the record, you may have a glance today at Ambedkar University, Gujarat also, when I'm here. Yes, so national education policy talks about student-centric approach. And when we talk about open universities, they are very student-centric. Their approach is very student-centric. And as I said that whatever I am today, it's not only my degrees in education, but my being NCC, Navy cadet captain taught me something, my state level swimming championship taught me something, my classical dance taught me something. So that kept on adding one or the other virtue within me, and that made me what I am. National education policy also talks about the same, that true education should be able to make a person live worthy life, satisfaction from the life, should be able to make an individual to solve the problems. Now the conferences are there to discuss about the problems and their solutions. Research is for what? If a very simple layman language, if we say we search or we research for what? To solve the problems. When we talk about to solve the problems are not disciplinary problems, they are interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary problems. And so, the approach towards research or education should be the same. I do remember in the school I've studied, you might be, rest of the days I had a glance over the subject, topics and speakers, what they are going to say. They would be speaking very focused on certain theories, psychology and literature. I am talking about the thrust area in general as a chief guest. So, I do remember that education, we were taught how to stay together also. Now you see, when UNESCO talks about learning to learn, learning to do, learning to be, learning to live together as 4 pillars for education. Now just think of it, that till today whatever we studied, how did we learn, how were we taught? Learning to be. Now you see, the whole world after education starts doing what? Becoming. It is not about being. True education teaches us to be in being rather than becoming. But unfortunately, people have started in the rat race of becoming something, becoming like someone. No, we are born to be what we are. So we have stopped cherishing that being part within us. When we talk about learning to do everything, that happiness, that pleasure to do something on our own, the dignity of labor, that what Gandhi talked long back, it started losing. People, when they go to abroad in foreign countries, They're ready to do everything there, but here, oh, I cannot do. So somewhere that learning to do is not there. Learning to learn. The students are to be taught what they learn to learn. Once you learn how to learn, you will keep on learning. And unfortunately, we keep on teaching subjects. We never teach to learn how to learn and learning to live together. I've been associated with placement department throughout my career till date. And everywhere we used to have the best companies, Infosys, Microsoft, TCS, all. And they will come and tell, Madam, we do not want your gold medalists because we will have to train for their subjects, whatever they are going to do. We want people with good attitude. They can make a good team because we have best gold medalists with us today and they're good for nothing. When we assign them certain task that you are supposed to lead a team of these 4 people, he will not let me complete the sentence and he'll tell, sir, not that one. Huh? I will not be able to. No. Without him, I will work. Now you see, people, many a times, they say that Hamari Sanskrit ya culture is the culture of tolerance. No, there is difference between tolerance and acceptance. Tolerance means, I don't like you, but anyway, I will tolerate you. Our culture has never been culture of tolerance. Our culture has always been culture of acceptance. When we say, Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, so it is not my tolerance. It is my acceptance. I accept you as you are. So somewhere, why this interdisciplinary, multidisciplinarity is required is first is that when we look at a problem, when Charles Dickens produced good number of literary pieces, it was not simply literature or novels. They were much more than that. It talked about psychology, social, cultural scenario of the time so deeply. So if you read a book, you come to know what were the problems of that particular time. That happens with most of the literature. So when we talk about a problem are interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary. And that's why if you have a glance over education at school level, it talked a lot about PBL, that's project-based learning. So if a region from Gujarat, if a student learns, so he has to learn or she has to learn what kind of, what history that particular region cherishes, what is contribution of that region in the whole, maybe the state or the nation. They will have to study cultural language, literature of that region. Many a times what happens that children learn about Shakespeare, but they do not know about Kalidasa. We know that psychology got reflected in so and so literary pieces years back. Do we know that even Abhigyan Shakuntal has its own very deep understanding of psychology? When Shakuntala is getting married, what Kanva Rushi says, can we interpret that as a piece of psychology also in those stanza? So somewhere interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary study is very important. So I congratulate the organizers for choosing such a wonderful area to be discussed about. Most of the time we have come across this statement, that literature is a mirror to the society. But I think that is the half of the sentence. The other half is, it also shapes the society. I do remember that as a child when I read my experiments with truth or Jonathan Livingston, how that influenced my mind, how that shaped my thought. And that's why today the literature is being used as a tool to shape the thought process also. So when we talk about psychology and literature, we have to think about the two sides of it. The one is how literature reflects the psychology of the time, in autobiographical element of the author, and at the same time how that influences psychology of the readers of the time. So in that way, I think this particular area should be looked at and discussed with. Now, when we talk about psychology, the theories like, as Freudian or Oedipus or feminism or Marxist or socio-psychological linguistic also. We know it very well that socio-linguistic, psycholinguistics say, especially from the gender perspective, that when a woman writes, as a woman writer, there will be more adjectives, adverbs, question tags, and all that. That's the conditioning in a patriarchal society of a woman writer is there. And men will be having comparatively shorter, crisp sentences, comparatively lesser adjectives, adverbs, and question tags. Now, again, this observation reflects the psychology. When Shashi Deshpande was nationally awarded, the very famous news papers of the time, media coverage was there, and the title was, the front line said that woman writer bags the award. And in the interview, then she said, okay, why? When the men writer bagged award, did you mention that in the newspapers? I am a writer who happens to be a woman. I am not a woman writer. Now you see, this is psychology, sociology, and language and literature. So the conditioning, what has shaped the psychology of an individual, that gets reflected in the literature. Instead of taking examples from English literature, I would like to share something from my state literature. I don't know, Srikanji, you encouraged me a lot today to think and talk about my state. Thank you so much. So, again, national education policy focuses a lot on regional language, the literature in regional language and teaching learning in regional language, because language and literature, they carry culture with them. Now, for example, when we talk about psychology, psychology is very closely associated with sociology and cultural background of an individual. One of the very famous poets of Gujarat, Ravji Patel, long back, has produced beautiful literary pieces, poems. When he was suffering from TB and he was on his deathbed, the last poem he wrote was Mari Aankhe Kankuna Suraj Athamya. That my eyes today witness setting of the sun. Sun is of Kanku. I don't know whether you know. Sindoor. Now, a person who doesn't have particular background will not be able to understand it. Because Patel is a community, Sardar Patel, you are familiar. Patel is a community comparatively very closely associated with earthen work, land work, farming and everything. And the women in their family, they put vermilion bindi, very big bindi. And that bindi symbolizes the presence of husband. And now the poet says that I witness that now this, he was on the TB hospital in Jitri near Bhavnagar city. And the white bedsheet, so that when the wife comes, that Kanku falls down and he looks and then he writes this poem. Now you see, this is a psychology getting reflected, and he says, beautifully written. If one understands Gujarati and listens, I doubt whether anyone will be able to stop the tears flowing. But so beautifully that now the psychology is reflected in that literature, and that eternal literature is created. Most of the textbooks at school level will have a short story, Lohini Sagai. That's the relationship that has been born with the blood relationship. It talks about mother and daughter's relationship. Amrat Kaki and Mangu, that's mother and daughter. Beautiful. If one might have watched movie Old Khamoshi of Vaida Rahman, No, at last she tries to help people recovering from mental disturbances, and at last she loses the same. This story is somewhat like that only. The daughter is mentally retarded, and the mother is so involved, so involved, so involved. And at the end, the last scene shows that the mother also gets mentally retarded. And there was a time, my father was a student, and the writer Ishwar Petlikar used to come to teach that story. And my father told that he asked a question, that we are very disappointed with you as an author. That throughout the story we were waiting that, no, the daughter will get recovered, but you disappointed us. Then the writer responded, even I was disappointed when I witnessed it. The class was silent. And then he told, this is the story of my mother and my sister. So I shared what I witnessed and never observed. Now you see, this is what is literature is all about. Hitler did not share so many things, but after years, Hitler's library was studied. And he had habit of marking, underlining certain lines while reading. So detailed research took place that thought process of Hitler, how he used to think from the books that he read, and while reading he underlined the lines. Now we can understand so close relationship between the psychology and what you underline, what you like, all the possible. What Hitler underlined, I might have not, or what I might have done, you might have not. It is about the thought process. And that's why it is very, very important. There was a time when the whole world talked about IQ. IQ, if your intelligence quotient is high, you will successful. Oh, EQ more important than spiritual question is the most important thing. And in Bharata, we started with the spiritual question. Centuries back, we were convinced. When today, be it Japanese people or other people talk about ikigai or talk about minimalism, itna hi chahiye to itna hi lenge. We have always talked about it. So I think we need to revisit those literature also again, that ancient literature. When we talk about ecofeminism, we say that theory of ecofeminism, have we visited our Ved, Upanishad? There so beautifully they have mentioned about environment, protection of environment. When we talk about the tree is to be worshipped, the rivers are to be worshipped, the land is to be worshipped. Karagre vasate Lakshmi, Karamulye Saraswati, Karamadhye tu Govinda, Prabhate Karadarshanam. समुद्र वसने देवी पर्वतस्तन मंडले विष्णु पत्नी नमस्तुभ्यम पादस्पर्शम. अगर मेरा पैर भी छू जाता है मैं आपको नमस्कार, आई शुड नॉट डू इट. वी आर सो सेंसिटिव. हर जीव के लिए हम सेंसिटिव है. When we talk about literature getting reflected in the psychology and psychology getting reflected, is not only application of a theory. Is it possible that what theory we are taking from the West today, all the possible, from the other countries, if we apply the same theory in our ancient scriptures, we realize it is so well reflected, so well absorbed. Now we talk about feminism. Chita basma lepo garalamashanam dikpatadharo. जटाधारी कंठे भुजगपतिहारी पशुपति कपालिम भूतेषु भजति जगदीशेक पदवी भवानी त्वत्पाणि ग्रहण परिपाटी फलमिदम. ये पूरा शिव का वर्णन है, डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ शिव. ये शिव इतने बड़े क्यों हैं? वो तो भस्म है, गले में नाग पहना हुआ, वाई. भवानी त्वत्पाणि ग्रहण परिपाटी फलमिदम. भवानी तेरा पानी ग्रहण किया उसने, तब से वो शिव एक शिव कहलाए. सो समवेयर वी नीड टू इंटरप्रेट, री इंटरप्रेट साइकोलॉजी in ancient literature also. Now you see the whole world talks about, earlier all of them were talking about GDP, and now they've started talking about happiness index. And when we talk about happiness index, literature, art, all those things come in picture. They make us happy. Catharsis, that is also, if we cry, we feel good. Why? We know it, what Aristotle said. So they are there. When we talk happiness index, it's the literature that makes one happy. It is the psychology, applying psychology, understanding other psychology through literature that makes one happy. I'm a classical dancer and choreographer. So whenever matter comes to the highest award or felicitation that Gujarat state gives to an artist is Gujarat Gaurav Puraskar. And I have been awarded, I would very humbly share that I have been awarded with Gujarat Gaurav Puraskar for Indian classical dance, Kathak's, my contribution in that field. What I've done is that I have converted beautiful piece of literature into dance drama and I've presented. Then maybe I read various versions of Ramayana and what Sita might have felt in the dance drama Sita Ka Prashna. The whole poem I will write, I will get it composed, sitting nights with the musicians and everything in studios, and then choreographing and performing. Krishna Mai say Krishna Bai, Draupadi and all that. Now, because you see, dance or movie, they are presentation, different modes of literature. They are literature. Dance is a literature. Words there or not, but it is literature because the story is there. And in classical dance Kathak, we have Gata Bhava that talks about the whole storytelling. There will be Kathanak, the whole story being told. And that's why the original name of Kathak, that's Katha Kahe So Kathik. It came from Kathik to Kathak. So Katha Kahe So Kathik. Now when we talk about literature and psychology, why I talk about Draupadi or Sita or Yashodhara or Draupadi, Krishna Mai say Krishna Bai, all the 6 women in the life of Krishna, how they were higher level of Krishna rather than Krishna himself. वो कहते कृष्ण मैं कृष्ण कृष्ण करते ऐसे कृष्ण हो गए, मैं कृष्ण से भी बड़ी कृष्ण हो गई. Starting from Devki, Yashoda, Radha, Draupadi, Rukmani, Meera, all the 6. Relate with. When we talk about children's literature, psychology, Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, they are beautiful piece of literature, very good. But I am not able to relate it. I am not able to. But when I have stories of maybe Panchatantra or Hitopdesh, or I do remember that mother goat with kids and how that mother goat brings all kids, children from the tummy of tiger, I'm able to relate more. Be it the story of Draupadi or story of Bhima or Hanuman, I'm able to relate it more because I have cultural connection. My psychology gets somewhere, absorption, percolation. So that happens. When we talk about literature and psychology, adaptation in movies when we look, for example, one single piece of literature, we know that Vishal Bharadwaj has come up with beautiful adaptation of Shakespearean plays and very beautiful. And if we look at that, we can very minutely, otherwise also Vishal Bharadwaj, very good. And with the Gulzar, he comes up with, wonderfully he comes up with. Psychology, Indian psychology, how that is getting reflected in the adaptation of literary pieces of Shakespeare. I would request all of you to watch all the movies again and again. Have a glance over the setting, about the costume, about the choice of words. If one is asked to translate maybe one paragraph, all the 10 people, all of the translation would differ. Why? Otherwise, the literature, that paragraph is the same, the words are same. But translation, because translation is a cultural process. It is a social process. It's a psychological process. It's not only Google process. It is much more than that. And that's why the choice of words will differ. If we look at Pride and Prejudice, 1, and adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, I'll request all the faculties that do make your all students watch those with BBC that series also. Beautiful adaptation. Now, this is again very interesting. When I went through it, that process, just out of curiosity, I was reading that who made it, who performed it, who wrote that particular script. Everybody kept on adding to it. Even the dress designers, Mrs. Bennet, she shouts, so let be curly hairs. Why? Because it would be easier for us to show her hysteric. Now you see, these are very small things, but they keep. Now the same is adapted with a little Indianness in it, Bride and Prejudice with Aishwarya Rai. Now you see, a little the Punjabi background. Why? Because the nature of mother, that surrounding, what she talks about, what discussions take place, that is comparatively closer, a little closer to that Punjabi culture. And if the director comes there, or maybe script writer comes from there, you will get it still more. So psychology and literature very closely associated. Most of the time what happens that we take a theory, psychology and apply to literature. But I would request all of you to still look beyond that too. That how literature shapes the psychology. Unfortunately, it is not much discussed. I always say that every teacher should read Toto Chan. Every teacher should watch movie Divaswapna or read a book Divaswapna. Why? Because the literature shapes thought process. I think more work should be done on that also. And especially when we are there to choose the texts for the students, what exactly they will be studying. I think we need to have a glance over that also. We know it very well, be it be Ernest Hemingway or maybe James Joyce or Virginia Woolf or psychology in literature. No art, no literature can be away from either culture or psychology. But how we interpret it, I do remember I happened to read, we know it, The Beautiful Tree, all of you must have read it, that literacy, the standard literacy, what were there before the Britishers, during the time of Britishers, a detailed study was there and it was submitted also and it was published also. But then the interpretation later on comes, why national education policy is more of national, not only new educational policy. Because then India is a country of snake charmers. Now what narrative one says and what is the reality? So somewhere I happened to read a writer who said that Rama and Mahabharata, all of them talk about Himachadit Parvat. And Bharat, India never had snow. So again, these are the stories of West and these are the Western heroes. Be it be Ram or... So they said, now you see interpretation. And that's why national education policy talks a lot about and very strongly it recommends to establish Indian Institute of Translation and Interpretation. Interpretation is important. Interpretation is very dangerous. So one will have to be as a faculty of English or maybe as people associated with either psychology or literature. It is our responsibility that every piece of literature is interpreted rightly. Again, we know that reader's response theory says that which text you are talking about, the text that author had in mind, author wrote, a person read, person interpreted. You know, there are various texts, but still somewhere there will be a common thread. And that interpretation is again psychological. That's sociological, that's cultural. because sociology and cultural perspectives, they add to psychology of an individual. Many a times as a faculty of communication skills, I'll ask when Shukhanji was telling that people have lesser time for art, culture, literature or communication. Many a times as a faculty I used to, because we used to have students from the regional colleges, they were not schools, they were not comfortable to speak maybe 5 sentences on English. First exercise that I used to make them perform is that introduce yourself, and then I'll ask describe yourself. Introduce yourself, I'm so and so, coming from so and so, this was my result in 12, this is that. When I ask describe yourself, he or she would look at me, what is that? I say something about you which nobody else knows. Not simply about your marks and your surname and place you belong, much more than that, what you are. Unfortunately, we have never set to think what I am, for what I am here. The purpose of life, whatever I do, for what? So somewhere that psychology which is required, literature do that. When we read Siddharth, we realize for what we are here. When we read Alchemist, what should be the direction? So literature influences psychology also. I will not take much time. Thank you very much. It was indeed a pleasure to be a part of this conference. I would request that when at the end of the conference, whatever reservoir is ready is being shared, somewhere if in a nutshell, what exactly should be the research area for further studies. That also, if conference comes forward with, that will be very useful for the researchers as well as for the faculties also. That whenever they publish certain papers or they feel like writing or researching about something, they know exactly what are the... So rather than the solutions, if the conference would talk more about the problems or thrust areas, fields to be still researched about, that would be great. Thank you very much. I'm very thankful to the organizers for inviting me and making me a part of this conference, and wish you all the best. I really welcome you all to the land of Gujarat. It's a beautiful land of Asiatic lions, land of people like Gandhi and Sardar who lived really like life of those Asiatic lions, and very culturally rich. No, I'm so sorry, I'm taking a minute more. Recently, I had been to, my niece got married. So somewhere when we talk about our cultural, many a times, our cultural, that after getting married, the girl leaves that kanku thapa on the walls. They have rice in their hand. Now you see, these are very beautiful traditions, very beautiful traditions. They have their own interpretations. Many a times, we fail to pass on those interpretations to the next generation, because that says a lot about our spiritual journey, our detachment. How? Because you see, when we do small things in our life, we pay tribute, we say thank you to environment, we say thank you to individuals around us, we show our connected, that eternal bonds with environment, with other animals, everything. So somewhere I feel that through literature, these cultural values, they go forward, they move forward. Unfortunately, I was so happy that in this very close family marriage, so this group was to be selected. I said that after every, ritual, you will explain the bride and groom, this is for what exactly? What does it mean for? What does it stand for? I think all this is also literature. And that also reflects the psychology, our thought process. And that also need to come down the line. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to talk about something close to my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. From Indian ancient literature to Kalidasa to Charles Dickinson, and from Charles Dickinson to Pride and Prejudice, besides national education policy, and psychological thought process. Madam Vice Chancellor, you also projected the literary realm of Gujarat. Thank you for the wonderful thought-provoking address. I now request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly felicitate Professor Ami Upadhyay, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Baba Saheb Ambedkar State Open University, Gujarat. Thank you, Madam Vice Chancellor, for receiving our token of appreciation. Now, before we begin the keynote address, I would now request Dr. Madhura to introduce Dr. Ajanta Sarkar to the August gathering.
Good morning, everyone.
Check that my PPT is ready. My PPT is going to be not like Madam so wide, but a very short one. So I have some slides, and I think Srikant sir has given somebody the. Yes. Shall I just check with the gentleman? Yes.
ನಾರಾಯಣ್ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇದೆ ಪೆನ್ ಡ್ರೈವು.
I'll send it to him by WhatsApp. Right? Sorry, ma'am. I just take one.
Okay, no, it's on.
Madam, you come even manage.
Good morning, everyone. It's my pride and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker today, Madam Professor Ajanta Sarkar. Uh, is so long and I'm cutting it short. Madam is right at present she is working as a professor in the Department of English, School of Social Sciences and Languages, VIT, Vellore Institute of Technology, Vellore, Tamil Nadu. And she is a visiting professor at various national and international universities. And recently she was nominated by the ICCR MEA to be the chair India Studies at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C. From, I think, August 2014. And she is a postdoc fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, from 2006 to 2009. And Madam was also a fellow in cultural studies at the Center of Studies in Social Sciences, Calcutta, from 1998 to 2001. 2001 and 2006, Madam has also worked in the media and broadcast industry, and she has contributed a lot. And her interest areas are, her primary research interest areas are critical theory, post-colonial literature, and Madam is a, I think, first rank student wherever she goes, and she has completed her schooling and she she is a graduate. Later, she pursued her MPhil from the University of Hyderabad, India, and later she moved to UK to pursue her PhD. And there, I think, in the year 1993 to 97, and she is also passed exams in German and French languages, and she has received many prestigious awards. To name a few: Hinduja Foundation Fellowship, and she was also awarded the University Merit Scholarship for first rank in MA, BA, and so on. That's what I said. Wherever she has entered, she bagged all the medals. So she was also awarded the Commonwealth Fellowship for her PhD, and she was also got Junior Research Fellowship for English awarded by the University Grants Commission of India in 1995. And regarding her publication, she has 2 books for her credit, namely Framing the Nation, Language of Modernity in India, published by Siegel Books, UK, in association with Chicago University Press, and another book entitled The Category of Children's Cinema in India, published by IAAS Shimla in 2016. And she has published n number of articles in national as well as in international journals, refereed journals. To name a few, she has written a paper, right, of metaphorical politics, Bombay cinema and Indian cinema and Indian society. And even she has also reviewed an article on Paul Willman and Ashish Rajadhyaksha editors, the Encyclopedia of Indian Cinema, which was published by London. And as I said, that she has presented papers in national and international conferences, and even she was also delivered a lecture, many lectures in various universities across the globe. To name, she has delivered a lecture on Indian popular culture of the 80s in Leicester de Montfort University, and she has also delivered a lecture of Sussex in 1994 on the topic Salman Rushdie and notions of citizenship in Midnight's Children. And she has also published a paper which was published by the University of Roskilde University, Denmark. And regarding her academic career, and she, as I said in the beginning of my introduction, that she is right now serving as a professor in VIT. Before that, she had a history of working in many streams. She was also the sole quality in charge of entire English course material of the department. And though all her years she spent in VIT, she has been on the moderation committee for all university exams in English. Later, in 2006, she was delighted to accept the offer when it was came from the University of Hyderabad as a visiting professor. To sum up, Madam has a very vibrant career and vibrant personality, and she has also worked in various capabilities. Even she has worked in Tata Group, as far as I know, and she worked as a part of as an executive member in the design team, and it is my pride and privilege to introduce you, ma'am. I thank the organizers of this conference for giving me this opportunity to introduce this wonderful character. And we are really excited to listen to you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Madhura. I now request Professor Ajanta Sarkar, Professor, Department of English, School of Social Sciences and Languages, VIT University, Vellore, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, sir. Yes. Good morning. So first of all, I'm kind of overwhelmed. It's an extraordinary honor for me to be part of your institution, to visit this great and historic city. In absentia, first of all, I wish to thank very, very deeply the Vice Chancellor of Karnataka State Open University. I thank Shrikant sir for getting in touch with me. It was such a pleasant surprise. And just about a matter of 3 weeks, he's made me feel like an old friend. I thank Ma'am Dean Academics for making time to be here. I thank Dr. Manjunath, who's also been so kind to invite me here. Madam Upadhyay, I just met her this morning. It's an extraordinary honor listening to you, to all the faculty, research scholars. So my presentation is not going to be as wide-ranging as Madam's, and I'm a bit diffident about that. I'm an academic, almost straight-jacketed, but I have a great sort of an enduring passion for Sigmund Freud. And many of the points that I wanted to kind of talk about have already been gestured to by our distinguished first speaker. So first of all, I do also have a PPT, and I'll quickly run through that, just to show you some kind of very significant, places, events in the history of psychoanalysis. Now, psychoanalysis is unique because, exactly as Madam was suggesting, here it is the discipline of medical science that's paying tribute to literature. Sigmund Freud, of course, was also a Jew. He lived through Hitler's Germany. And Madam has already mentioned why that moment was very significant. She's also reminded us, and from histories of the world, that groups are actually very, very difficult things to form and to carry forward. And groups often have their own inherent violence. So we talk of collectivities, and that's say the German people or the Indian people, or as has just happened very consequentially, I think, the American people today. Literature, indeed, has been one of those very, very privileged institutions in that it's able to capture the nighttime dreams that we don't even confess to ourselves. Sigmund Freud was, of course, a neurologist. He was studying the brain. And he realized that medicine from the time of Hippocrates had got some things very wrong. So even in the way in which he formulates his concepts, right? He calls it the Oedipus complex because it is his tribute to Sophocles. And he's telling us he's greatly influenced by Shakespeare. There is a direct India connection because, of course, Gandhi's experiments with truth are in many ways a complex negotiation with one factor that will be a central tenet of psychoanalysis, sexuality. Gandhi's biographer, Romain Rolland, was a very, very close friend of Sigmund Freud as well. And today also, given the devastating war in Israel-Palestine, psychoanalysis, Israel, the state of fantasy. So psychoanalysis has a very, very deep relevance in Donald Trump's America, Evans Pritchard, as you will all know. The rewriting of texts, the foundational texts of American literature, such as Huckleberry Finn, from the perspective of Jim, who's the runaway slave. Right? So literature has indeed a very, very trauma theory and all of that. Then I won't have the time to, in the technical sessions, we will go into many of these things in detail. What I'm going to do today is just kind of, signpost some very, very significant moments of that history. So literature, of course, as I said, as I've just told you, psychoanalysis begins in a sense with Sigmund Freud. And he discovers at one point that medicines and injections don't work. And he creates a new model of treatment that he calls free association, which is the talking cure. Now, because at that point, this is such a revolutionary medical treatment, at the time, his medical license was actually taken away. Because it was assumed that doctors should prescribe injections and tablets, and doctors who don't do that are quacks. Later on in life, Sigmund Freud is reinstated as Professor Extraordinarius. Psychoanalysis is also very, very important because in some ways they mark a decade, the first decades of the 20th century, when you see the powers of modern science being used for industrial scale war. Now there is, of course, the background of colonial history, which Europe doesn't account for very much. But when the First World War breaks out, they see nerve gas, trench warfare, and all of that. Freud was also a war writer. Trauma, therefore, becomes a very, very critical point for Freud to analyze. As the League of Nations is then almost tottering, Freud dies in 1939, before the worst atrocities happen. But Freud, by this time, is also a privileged emigre, right? And Freud's books are, of course, burnt in public. Freud discovers psychoanalysis in Vienna. We'll start this in a moment. But just, I'll tell you when to change slides, yeah? So this is just before we run through the slides. So Freud dies in 1939, but he's, of course, as I said, a Jew. And he lives in this modest apartment in Vienna, assimilated Jew. As the climate of opinion and political climate changes in Vienna itself, his books are burnt, he's publicly ashamed for many, many things, also the controversial nature of his discoveries. Freud refuses to leave, but by this time he's gained international fame. His family history is, of course, also very dark, but there's one particular moment when Anna Freud, who will also figure in my slide, is actually called for questioning by the Gestapo. Now, because Freud is a very, very privileged emigre by this time, I'll tell you when to change it, yeah? Roosevelt actually directly intervenes, and Freud is able to escape to Paris. But parts of his family are, of course, sent to the concentration camp. By this time, Freud is too old, and he's also dying of cancer. He does not know that. Why Freud is also important is the intervention of a certain kind of instrumental reason. This is still before the Oppenheimer moment. And post-Oppenheimer, there are very many things that we could say. So Freud spends a lot, and at that time, Freud also has very, very direct correspondence with people like Martin Buber, Gershel Scholem, the founders of Zionism. Freud he's also prescient. And he decides not to move to Israel, though he can. He moves instead to London. Why does he not move to Israel? Because he's prescient that we will do to the Palestinians what has been done to us, the death drive, the compulsion to repeat. So Freud is relevant in many, many ways, and in the technical sessions, we will go into many of these in detail. He also has great relevance to the non-Western world, the interpretation of myths, the violence, but also, the sublimity. And I just want to end with this last point. So by now, the League of Nations stand after the Treaty of Versailles, is also tottering. And the great Einstein, who's also a Jew, is given a kind of carte blanche. And you choose any intellectual in the world and ask him this fundamental question: why are we the only species that goes to war? So Einstein chooses Sigmund Freud, and there's a great sort of exchange of letters called Why War? So Sigmund Freud is of great relevance, and I'm extraordinarily pleased to be part of this conference. In the technical sessions, we will come back and you kind of deal with his theories at length. But these are some pictures that I thought, we'll begin with the first slide. And in the keynote, we're just kind of tracing out Sigmund Freud's journey. But can you come to the first slide, please? All right. So that's the Freud Museum in Vienna. That's it's the Freud Museum today, where he discovers psychoanalysis, where most of the major books are written. The next slide, please. So there's a very, very important lecture that's organized every year on Freud's birthday. The 53rd one was given by Homi K. Bhabha, who's, of course, a very well-known post-colonial theorist, where he also talks about a psychoanalyst. He primarily focuses on the moment of the George Floyd murder and Donald Trump, and COVID, and why these three things happened together. But he also references a very, very important Indian psychoanalyst who we will come to later on. So that's the Freud Museum in Vienna. The next slide, please. This is the place where he lives the last year of his life. It's also the place where his daughter, Anna Freud, establishes her clinic, the Freud Museum London. And similarly, the next slide, the Freud Museum London has these great lectures. A very, very important one was given on Freud and Edward Said, called Elective Affinities. The last book that Freud writes, which is published posthumously, is called Moses and Monotheism. Edward Said uses that book to talk about Freud and the non-European. All right, the next slide, please. And these are great books. All right. So some recent Freud biographies. So there's Peter Gay. Then, of course, there's Adam Phillip, who was one of the editors of the Standard Freud collection. Madam has talked about feminism, so there are very, very influential women in Freud's life. Lisa Afanasi, Rudinescu, again, who reinterprets Freud, and there have been so many. But these are just some landmark contemporary Freud scholars. Slide, please. All right, so this is the first application of psychoanalysis to a work of literature, where Freud says, look, what I'm saying is I don't have empirical proof, and that is how literature becomes for him evidentiary. But what I have said has always been known to the great literateurs of the past. And he goes back to this person called Hansen, and he says, there's a reading of literature of that little story, where he says, look, this is all about repression and defense. He was a creative writer. I am a man of science. I'm just giving you a scientific topography of the mind. So Gentler Diver, 1907, is the first application of psychoanalysis to a work of literature. The next slide, please. All right, so here are the two very, very significant figures, especially for feminist theory, Anna Freud and Melanie Klein. Freud is, of course, Anna Freud, Freud's youngest daughter, very famous child analyst, and her contemporary, Melanie Klein. So there's a particular moment in the history of psychoanalysis when these two brilliant women take opposing sides. And Freud, who's always been very wary about legacy and lineage, pitches in with his daughter. Klein here is the outsider. Today, Klein is considered, and Freud is unable to acknowledge that Melanie Klein is actually taking his own insights to places that he has not visited. Similar things he also acknowledges about the great writers, as ma'am mentioned, Joyce, Virginia Woolf, and a host of others. Klein is also important because all of you would be familiar with Julia Kristeva today. Kristeva's been the reader of Klein. All right, the next slide, please. Yeah, so the first kind of very, very significant European moment when psychoanalysis becomes integrally woven with critical theory is, of course, the Frankfurt School. All of you will be aware of Horkheimer Adorno. As Horkheimer takes over directorship of the institute, psychoanalysis becomes an integral part. And they're asking this very question: how does politics give authoritarian personalities? Why do groups become so exclusivist? Who fits into the group and who doesn't? And that moment in Europe is very important because the Jews were not living outside Germany. And the final solution came after a long kind of string of events. It was first the Romas, then the homosexuals, and the disabled people, the communists, and in the end, the final solution. So you can have groups formed around very charismatic father figures. This is a term that Lacan will come back to. But some father figures target false scapegoating, stereotyping. These are very, very significant sort of moments for them. So Erich Fromm, who has typically not been seen as very important, but now there's a whole new school of Erich Fromm scholarship. Wilhelm Reich, of course, the mass psychology of fascism. And this is very important because you have leaders who who spring up out of nowhere, strong men who claim they have answers for everything. And they're sometimes very dangerous. It's dangerous to assume we have solutions. So this moment becomes very, very important in the 1930s. But the next slide, please. Yeah. So all of us know what the great Hannah Arendt. And there's actually a 2016 film called Hannah. So now, what's the guy's name? Alfred Eichmann, who was Hitler's strongman, has now been captured by the Mossad, and he's being tried. Hannah Arendt, who's also a contemporary of Walter Benjamin, actually covers that trial and discovers in the end that all of us could become Adolf Eichmann tomorrow. And that again, she's labeled as a self-hating Jew, as something really scandalous, but these are very, very significant. How when for Freud, the ability to be human lies in the ability to think critically, to not simply follow orders, to not just say Heil Hitler. And those are very important moments because it's a moment of mass media. Hitler's a very, very powerful orator. And Hannah Arendt and the Frankfurt School are warning us, this is not the first, this may be the first time, but this is certainly not the last. These forms, these political formations may happen again. And Hannah Arendt is very, very clear. What would have saved the Jews or Walter Benjamin is not more guns, but more philosophy. So it's a very, very powerful kind of, evocation. Then we go to the Walter Benjamin, of course, all of us know, and his tragic death, and the extraordinary book, the last book that he writes, The Arcades Project, the relationship between consumerism, the mass fantasies, and new media today, and the rise of the influencer. So, and I often tell my students at BTech, of the BTech classes at VIT, and they're very bright, and I love them. But I tell them, look, if there was a Zara store in town, all of you would know where it was. Do you know where is Palestine? Most of them don't. And Walter Benjamin's kind of warning us of this, 100 years ago. So it's a very, very complex moment, and Freud remains deeply, deeply relevant. I'll remember the next slide, please. Some landmark books on the Frankfurt School. So I will share this PPT. I've already shared this with Srikanth sir. I'd be very happy to share all the material because they're really things that they've been transformative for me. I hope you will enjoy them too. So the first one, Martin J, is of course the scholar of the Frankfurt School. He also writes extensively on the first Trump presidency. I'm sure you'll have a great deal to say today as well. But that one, 1974, Political Imagination. The second, The Melancholy Science. This is a meditation on Adorno, but Gillian Rose is also a lesbian. So the moment of transphobia. As you know, in the Capitol Hill today, certain kinds of bathrooms have been banned already. Right? So there's an integral connection with a very, very stable sexual identity and a targeting of what's seen as deviant. And we will come back to this in our technical session. So where Freud agrees with Wordsworth is that the child is the father of man. And for Freud, the child is the father of man because his sexuality is free, open, polymorphous, and perverse. That we are all bisexual. And the assumption of a stable sexual identity, in a sense, begins, it's a lifelong kind of process of trauma. Then, of course, the Grand Hotel Abyss, Stuart Jeffries, again, a very, very significant Frankfurt School theorist, who is also in conversation with Esther Leslie. And the last name, Overpowering Conformism, is really something also people interested in new media should read. What does it, the cloud computing moment. People also like I.L. Weisman. And a lot of these are also Jewish scholars, by the way. All right, the next slide, please. Yeah. So psychoanalysis, this is the 1930s and after. Then in the history of psychoanalysis, a really major moment happens in 1960s, especially centered around France. Many of the, Marcuse, for instance, is actually in Paris. But the really significant kind of, protege of Sigmund Freud at this moment is Jacques Lacan. And Jacques Lacan kind of makes the return to early Freud using the Saussurian model of language. There is no natural relationship between word and signifier and signified. And from that, a whole philosophy, in a sense, is the edifice of Western classical philosophy kind of, is called into question. And I am especially using Jacques Lacan because there is also another great kind of interlocutor of Freud, and that's Jacques Derrida, but I'm leaving that aside for the moment. The next is a person called Gilles Deleuze, and again, I'll just tick the box and move on. The main heir of Jacques Lacan today is Slavoj Žižek, again, who's a name who's very familiar, and the range of feminist theorists that I'm going to kind of, signal in my presentation, both are very appreciative of him in some ways, and in some others, not so. So can we come to the next slide, please? Within the 1960 context of 1960s France, three major feminist psychoanalytic thinkers. Julia Kristeva, of course, Desire and Language, the critical concept of abjection. Perhaps all of you know this. If you don't, no worries. We will discuss some of this in the technical section. The second name is Hélène Cixous, The Laugh of the Medusa. And she's looking, they're all looking at the great myths of Western culture. And why have they been so heavily and violently misogynist in so many ways? Hélène Cixous also has this idea of, exactly as ma'am said, the feminine literature. Do women write differently or not? Today, Sharmila Rege will tell us the same thing. Dalit women write differently too. So there are many echoes and cross connections. The final one is Lucy Irigaray, speculum. And their concerns overlap, but three major feminist thinkers who use Freud, in a sense, to challenge the phallocentricity of even the psychoanalytical institution represented by Jacques Lacan. And they are all women who, in some ways, take issues with Lacan on some points. The next slide, please. Then we move on to, actually, there's, before I came, I put in another slide. In the, at the Freud Museum in London, beginning, I think, 5th December, there's a very major conference that is going to happen on Kristeva or Irigaray. Okay, I missed out that slide here because I only put that in last night. Then we, of course, come to the second wave feminist movement, that's 1970s, Juliette Michel. So women, the longest revolution. And again, I'm talking about America as women fight for abortion rights and Roe v. Wade's overturned. When you write history from the perspective of women, the status of women in India today, so history never follows straight lines. And that's exactly what Freud says, that you never outgrow the child and become an adult. Psychosis and neurosis follow very different kind of, developmental lines. Freud, in this instance, is also directly in opposition with people like Jean Piaget and the idea of a straight line of human development. So psychoanalysis and feminism, reading Melanie Klein. So with the feminist theorists, it's Melanie Klein and Julia Kristeva really makes that possible. There are ways in which feminists have, as I said, taken issue with Lacan in some ways and gone back to Klein instead. The next slide, please. Okay, so Jacqueline Rose, she is the interlocutor of Edward Said. Her book, The Question of Zion, is a tribute to Edward Said's The Question of Palestine. She works extensively with apartheid South Africa and the Israel-Palestine question. So all of these things around, the TRC, she has a one, so in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, right? There's one very chilling kind of testimony. And this testimony is not being made by a policeman. This is a testimony from an Indian woman who claims that, look, I was not a murderer, and I did not even directly benefit from apartheid. So they ask her then, what is the crime that you committed? She says, my crime was apathy, that I did nothing. And for Freud to be apathetic, it needs to put in a lot of work. There's a whole state machinery that tells us we should not act. And so they're really, as I said, very critical thinkers, somebody who's been formative to my own trajectory, and of course also writes about cinema. That's really what I work with. Then the next person, please, the next slide. Yeah, Judith Butler. And who does not know Judith Butler today? Goes right back to Anna Freud and Melanie Klein, talking about how gender is always a performance. And in later years, as you know, Judith Butler has also looked extensively at war. This is really beginning with the so-called war on terror, and what it means for American soldiers to actually capture on video tortures at Abu Ghraib and circulate them. And obviously, the expected answer, the expected response is jubilation, that we know what we are doing. And these are the guys who don't know don't understand democracy. Frames of war, precarious life, which life can be mourned, which not? Does a black or a Dalit life have the same value as the life of a middle-class person as I? Do institutions allow those? And should they not therefore be rigorously claimed? This is exactly what happens in the Black Lives Matter movement, with the Rhodes Must Fall movement, how educational institutions, unconsciously a lot of times, so Jane Eyre, right? All of us know Mad Woman in the Attic. How does the canon come constituted? Yeah, all right. Then the next slide, please. Psychoanalysis and the non-West. So, of course, I've already mentioned Said and Freud, Homi Bhabha. All of you know Gayatri Spivak and her epochal question, can the subaltern speak? And her answer there is, out of rage, the subaltern cannot speak. But I think she would say that the subaltern does speak, only the state does not have the sensitivity and the institutional apparatuses to understand what she's saying. And that, for Spivak, is the mode. A citizen is only somebody who has access to the structures of the state. And many, many people, and certainly with the climate crisis, a looming threat of 2 wars spreading worldwide, an anti-immigrant sentiment, or who even qualifies, and the life of Walter Benjamin is very, very significant, as it opens up these categories. Who is the asylum seeker? Who is, quote-unquote, the original citizen? Who inhabits originally a piece of land? And Israel is, as I said, the case study here, So all Jews everywhere, a land without a people for a people without land. Okay. Then we go to the Arabic front. There are lots in the Arab Spring. There were Talasad is one of them. With many, many great scholars I've just cited. There's also a very well-known Egyptian scholar, and again, I put that slide in last night, Mustafa Sufan, and we will discuss him when we come to the technical session. Contemporary of Lakham, but also very, very critical of him. So the next slide, please. Then Achille Mbembe, who's, of course, now today works in South Africa, who writes about the Rhodes Must Fall movement. His major conceptual breakthrough is called the necropolis. And here, who has as security apparatuses proliferate unimaginably, who has the right to decide who should live and who should be outside the city walls? So Frantz Fanon, who's also very critical of Freud, by the way, a whole new range of texts have now been put together by Robert Young and Jean Khalfa, and they're called Alienation and Freedom. Then, of course, Salman Akhtar, Freud Along the Ganges, and this was a very, very fine set of seminars conducted by the Wits Institute in Johannesburg on Fanon after Fanon. How does Fanon apply to our world today? By the next slide, please. Psychoanalysis in India. So now we come to Girindra Shekhar Bose, my hometown, Kolkata. And there was, of course, this guy who thought that Freud was deeply interesting. Although typically the correspondence is considered a failure, and I'm especially interested in failures, because they leave lots of open ends and what failure actually mean. So the Indian Psychoanalytical Institute, this is today a heritage building. Neither the CPM nor Mamata Didi has had much initiative in actually, the upkeep, as you can see. But to me, it's my Mecca, and I go there every year. Yeah, established in 1860, it's actually falling apart. And people are drying their clothes, and you think, my goodness, yeah. Okay, so we come to the next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the website of the Indian Psychoanalytical Society. It functions very much, and on 14th, Mike Brearley, who's the former British captain, who's also now a psychoanalyst, is going to give this year's Girindra Shekhar lecture. But the next slide, please. Yeah, this is Girindra Shekhar Bose. Very much part of the Bengal Renaissance movement, 1920s, 30s, the Swadeshi movement, right? So he decided never to travel to England, but he actually has a correspondence with Freud. This is Chopno, which is a rewriting of a reinterpretation, as ma'am said. That is a really loaded word, of dreams into Bangla. Very much part of 1920s, 1930s. And again, he's very, very clear. His major output, his brother was also a genius. Some of you might not know this moment. He writes on the Puranas, writes on the great, fairy tales, but also says that Freud is saying something very important.
In the end, he says that Indian men don't have a castration complex, and so there are also disagreements, but this moment is a very, very important moment in the history of psychoanalysis. The next slide, please. All right, so the early issues of Samiksha have now been archived by the CSCS Bangalore, and you can all see that. Samiksha means analysis, but he wants to go back to a high Vedantic philosophy, and he says that this idea of free association, where you go back, and indeed, Freud was so indebted to religion, to these great traditions, they have overlaps. Yeah? Okay. So, Chitto means soul. Okay, the next slide. Yes, here's the Samiksha archives, and they're very, very significant moments, because his case histories, of course, only pertain to the Bhadralok Samaj, that is the middle-class Bangla society, but and this is the point that Ashish Nandi and Sudhir Kakkad will come back to, that Indian men somehow have a maternal fixation. In some ways, they differ. So I don't agree with either Kakkad or Nandi, but I think they are very, very important in signaling these moments and have made many, many very, very interesting insights. Achha, okay, the next slide, please. So psychoanalysis today. So obviously, there's Sudhir Kakkad, Savage Freud. This is Ashish Nandi writing on Girindra Shekhar Bose. Anup Dhar, who works very much within Kakkad's tradition, and Amrita Narayan too. And I missed out one slide in between, that is, immediately after Freud, there is this whole school of neo-Freudians, and we will hear about some of them today. So Freud's proteges, Jung, Adler, Erikson, Stekel. So they're kind of these legendary battles. So I just wanted to open this keynote seminar by using this PPT to tell you, one, that Freud has been deeply relevant to the world for the last 100 years, continues to be deeply relevant today, and he's paying homage to literature. This is telling us that medical science needs to go beyond injections and prescription. And unless we are able to do that, there will be a whole domain of human life that we will never be able to address. And as I said, goes back to Einstein, asking these, in the end, what Freud does is that he stops writing case histories, and he starts writing these major philosophical treatises, Civilization and its Discontents, The Future of an Illusion. So he's looking at the problem of human happiness. And for Freud, of course, because he's very much, in the rational mode, since God has died, there are no eternal truths. But that also means we have to take responsibility for what we do. Knowing that our answers are always provisional, that identity is deeply fractured, and in the end, the last book, that is, so first of all, when he says he doesn't believe in God, the Jews already disowned him. The Oedipus complex and all of this, yeah? The last book that's written posthumously, and this is as Freud is himself fleeing from Vienna, is Moses and Monotheism. And there is, by the way, a whole tradition of scholarship which says this. First of all, Freud says there are two Moses, and he says Moses was actually an Egyptian. And that really does it, And why does Edward Said go back to this book? He says because, we don't know the historicity of these figures. But we do know that it's possible to have groups where the outsiders can be the center. We do know that there can be groups that are formed not on gut instinct and primeval things such as fear and rage, which is what a lot of the authoritarian movements build on, but on analysis. And those, Freud says, civilization always has a double edge. On the one hand, you have Bach. On the other hand, you have the Third Reich. Can psychoanalysis prove a cure? Freud says maybe after 300 years. But there are no guarantees. And I'm going to end at that kind of note, because to me, it's not pessimism. It's to not underestimate the difficulties. And as Freud says, right, being human is a deeply, deeply troubled affair. And to know that we are very insignificant and that really none of us has access to the truth is in the end what Freud is saying. So as I said, it's because I study Freud, and psychoanalysis, and we're all seen as very weird in India. I think there are 36 psychoanalysts, in a population of over 1.5 billion, and I'm not a trained psychoanalyst. But as I said, it's an extraordinary honor for me to be here at this inaugural seminar, and in the technical sessions, we will carry forward some of the points that I've made. Be very happy to share the PPT, and thank you for listening to me, and for Shrikant sir for this extraordinary honor. Thank you. Bye-bye.
My dear students and research scholars, if you think this was the technical session, it was wrong. Indeed, it was a curtain raiser for the technical session, which will be immediately after the tea break. I now request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly honor Professor Ajanta Sarkar, Department of English, School of Social Sciences and Languages, VIT University, Vellore, Tamil Nadu. Thank you, madam, for receiving a token of appreciation. I now request the Dean Academic of Karnataka State Open University, Professor Lakshmi, to address the gathering.
ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಆಲ್. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಗಳು. Esteemed Chief Guest, Professor Ami Upadhyay ji, Keynote Speaker Dr. Ajanta Sarkar ji, Dr. Manjunath and Dr. Shrikant S, all other dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, members of the organizing committee, my colleagues, all faculty members and attendees, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students. It is my privilege to welcome you all to this conference on behalf of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharanappa V. Alse sir, for this 2 days national seminar on Prisms of Psychology in the Literary Realm. ಈ ಒಂದು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಕೇ ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ, ಕ್ಯಾಚಿ. ಏನಂತಂದರೆ ಈ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿಗೆ ರೆಲೆವೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ಮನೋವೈಜ್ಞಾನಿಕ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಮನೋವೈಜ್ಞಾನಿಕದ ಒಂದು ಕಿರಣಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಈ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರನ್ನು ಹೇಗೆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಗೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್. ರಿಯಲಿ ಇದು ಕ್ಯಾಚಿ ಆಗಿದೆ ಮತ್ತು ಯುನಿಕ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ತುಂಬ ಒಂದು ಅನಲಿಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಲಿಟ್ರಲಿ ಇದನ್ನು ತುಂಬ ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಮೈ ಪ್ರಿವಿಲೇಜ್ ಟು first of all welcome you all to our beautiful city Mysore, which is famous for its rich historical glory and cultural heritage. I would like to express my happiness for hosting this conference in our university. Our KSY was established in 1996, having the core objectives as access, equity, equality, quality, affordability, and accountability. In Karnataka, it is the only university providing open and distance education. Our motto is higher education for everyone, everywhere. At present, in KSYU, we have 67 programs in both UG and PG. We have 37 regional centers, 139 learner support centers, statewide supporting learners. Nearly 50,000 students are enrolling in each year for various courses under arts, science, and commerce and MBA streams. Apart from this, we introduced a 10 online program from last year also to help students to enhance their academic profile. We have very good infrastructure, eminent staff, and apt supporting staff to ensure efficient administration and to provide better education to students. I feel honored to announce that our institution immense contribution and commitment has led to NAC A+. ಮೇಡಮ್ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನ್ಯಾಕ್ ಕಮಿಟಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದರು ನಮ್ಮ ಮೇಡಮು. ಗುಜರಾತ್ ವೈಸ್ ಚಾನ್ಸಲರ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಜಿ ಬಂದಿದ್ದರು ಆ ಟೈಮ್ಗೆ ನಮ್ಮದು ನ್ಯಾಕ್ A+ ಬಂದಾಗ. ಮೇಡಮ್ ಈಸ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಲೀಡರ್ ಆವಾಗ ಬಂದಾಗ. ಸೊ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ಸ್ ಟು ಮೇಡಮ್. ರಿಯಲಿ ನ್ಯಾಕ್ A+ ಬಂದಿದೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಓಪನ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ. All this progresses is possible by our eminent Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharanappavi LC sir. The saying goes, as the leaders, so are the followers. Our Vice Chancellor sir, who motivates us and creates ample of opportunities, we would thank him for all his endeavors and encouragements. Our university is gaining more and more importance day by day. For that, let me thank everyone on this occasion who is directly and indirectly working for the success of our university. On this occasion, I would like to express my gratitude on behalf of everyone of Professor Ami Upadhyay ji, Vice Chancellor Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar State Open University, Gujarat. Having 26 years of teaching experience and administrative experience, Madam ji is the right person for today's program to address the guest as she is well versed in the area. I would like to thank you, Madam, on behalf of our everyone for accepting our invitation and joining us today, for motivating us through your commendable talk. Thank you very much. ಮೇಡಮ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಸರ್ವೇ ಜನಃ ಸುಖಿನೋ ಭವತು ಸತ್ಯಮೇವೆ ಜಯತೆ. ಈ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ಥೀಮ್ಗೂ ಅದಕ್ಕೂ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು. ಕಂಪೇರಿಟಿವ್ಲಿ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೆನ್ಗೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಮೆನ್ಗಿಂತ ವುಮೆನ್ ಆರ್ ಮೋರ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್, ಮೋರ್ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಷನ್, ಮೋರ್ ಮೋಟಿವೇಟರ್, ಮೋರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವ್, ಮೋರ್ ಪೇಷನ್ಸ್, ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿಕಲಿ ಅನಾಲಿಟಿಕಲಿ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ತಾಳ್ಮೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ವರ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಹಾಗನ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮೆನ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ವುಮೆನ್ಗೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಅವರು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಮೋಟಿವೇಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್ ಪೇಷನ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್. ರಿಯಲಿ ಅದು ಈ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ವರ್ಡಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ, ರಿಯಲಿ ಆ ಒಂದು ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರಲ್ಲೂ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ, ಈ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಅದು ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ಗುಡ್ ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತು. ಮತ್ತು ಅವರು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಈ ವೇದಿಕ್ ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್, ವೇದಗಳ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ವೇದಿಕ್ ಎಜುಕೇಷನ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, NEP 2020 ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೈಕೋ ಅನಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್. ಸೊ ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಜಿ. On the occasion, I would like to mention about other eminent personality. Today's keynote speaker just now, Dr. Ajanta Sirur, Professor, Department of English, VIT Vellore, who is not only a teacher but also an author and motivational speaker also. Just now ನೀವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರಿ ಸಿಗ್ಮಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಥಿಯರಿನ ಅನಾಲಿಟಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಸಿಗ್ಮಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಥಿಯರಿ ಫುಲ್ ಇವಾಗ ನಾವು ಆ ಒಂದು PPT ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಸಿಗ್ಮಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಥಿಯರಿ, ಸೈಕೋ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮನೋವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಮನೋವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆ ಮತ್ತು ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸಿಗ್ಮಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ಆ ಸಿಗ್ಮಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಥಿಯರಿಗಳು ಏನು, ಡ್ರೀಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು, ಹೇಗೆ ಅವರ ಒಂದು ಈ ಪರ್ಸ್ನಾಲಿಟಿ ಟ್ರೈಟ್ಸ್, ಪರ್ಸ್ನಾಲಿಟಿ, ಮೋಟಿವೇಶನ್, ಮತ್ತು ಹೇಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬರವಣಿಗೆಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಟಿವಿಟಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಮೇಡಮ್ ಜಿ. ಅದರಲ್ಲೂ ವುಮೆನ್ ದ ಲಾರ್ಜೆಸ್ಟ್, ತುಂಬ ಅವರೇ ಹೆಚ್ಚು ರೆವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು. ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಟಿವ್ಲಿ ವುಮೆನ್ನು ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ರೆವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್, ಕ್ರಾಂತಿ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, ಇದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗಳಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಸಿಗ್ಮಂಡ್ ಫ್ರಾಯ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಜಾನ್ ಡ್ಯೂಯಿ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕನೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅವೆರಡಕ್ಕೂ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಸಿವ್, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಮನ್ವಯ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಸಿವ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೋಟಿವೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಈ ಒಂದು, ನಾನು ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಸೈಕಾಲಜಿ ಜಾಯಿಂಟ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸ್ಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್. ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕ್ಯಾಚಿ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಕೇ ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಐ ಕಂಗ್ರ್ಯಾಚುಲೇಟ್ ದ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಚೇರ್ಪರ್ಸನ್ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಶ್ರೀಕಾಂತ್, ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಮಂಜುನಾಥ್, chairman, Department of Psychology, for their contribution, for their efforts to make this conference a grand success. I am very sure that this conference will be enriching experience for all the delegates. I thank each and everyone who are working to make this event success. In closing, I would like to appreciate and acknowledge all the professors, resource persons, teachers, research scholars, and attendees to their contribution, and wish everyone best of luck to make use of this session 2 days at most. Thank you very much, one and all. Wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Lakshmi, Dean Academic, Karnataka State Open University. Ladies and gentlemen, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharanappa V. Halse, was supposed to be here. Because of the unavoidable situation and circumstances, he had to rush immediately to Delhi. However, he has sent a message. I now request the technical team to present the message.
Karnataka State Open University organized 2 days seminar on psychology and literature. First of all, I congratulate Department of English and Psychology for their teamwork organizing for this seminar. The collaboration shows how bringing the different fields together can create the valuable opportunity for the learning and research. The theme of Prism psychology in the literature realm in the highly relevant today. The literature helps us understanding the human emotions and experiences, while psychology helps us uncover the thoughts and reasons behind those emotions. Together, they give us the deeper insights into the human life. At the Karnataka State Open University, we believe in supporting the discussion and the research. ACT brings together in a different ideas, perspectives, interdisciplinary event like the 2 days national highlight our focus of breaking the traditional boundaries and encouraging the innovative ways of thinking. Karnataka State Open University has always been committed to providing the quality education and fostering the intellectual growth. Our faculty members are playing a key role in this mission. They consistently guiding the students, dedication, nature, critical thinking, and encouraging the students in their respective research fields. Their expertise and their passion ensures that our institution remains a center of academic excellence. The 2 days national seminar reflects the hard work and both English and psychology department who continues to inspire the students and contribute to the university's legacy of the interdisciplinary learning. I am happy to see the presence of esteemed guests and speakers who have joined us today. The special thanks to Professor Ani Upadhyaya, Vice Chancellor of Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar State Open University, Gujarat, for delivering the inaugural address and sharing her valuable thoughts. I also extend my sincere thanks to our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Ajanta Sarkar, who highly respected in academic circles. Keynote speakers, Dr. Ajanta Sarkar, who is highly respected in academic circles. I would like to thank all the distinguished speakers from institutions like IIT Bombay, the University of Bengaluru South, and the University of Mysore, who expertise will surely add the great value to this seminar and inspire us all. To our students and scholars, this is this is your chance to learn, share ideas and grow. Dear participants, make use of this section with an open mind. Ask the questions and actively participate the seminar like these are the wonderful opportunities to extend your knowledge and understanding. Due to an urgent I have to leave Delhi to meet the higher authorities. I could not be part of this seminar. I wish this seminar is a great success and hope it creates the lasting impact on everyone present here. Thank you, and all.
In his absence, I extend my thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharanappa V. Alse, for his continuous support for all our academic endeavors. Now I call upon Dr. Shrikant S. to introduce Dr. Prashant Mohate, the editor of international peer-reviewed Langlit Journal.
In fact, our Vice Chancellor's message or bite was taken when he was in hurry. He was rushing to attend the Kannada Rajyotsava function yesterday. So I handed over the speech and he just delivered it, so gave the bite. So, at the outset, dear friends, Prashant Mohate is one of my good friend. We have around I think decades bonding between myself and Mohate. I met him in 2012 in Pune when I had gone to attend a seminar. From there our bonding developed and he is one of my very good friend. And he is running one of the famous journal in entire India called Langlit. It's a combination of language and literature. So it's called Langlit, in which around of people from 42 countries publish their articles. At the same time, he works as an associate professor in Department of English, Adarsh Senior College, Omarg, in Maharashtra. He is the editor-in-chief of Langlit, an international peer-reviewed open access journal. He has delivered talks as the keynote speaker in various international webinars held at Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, and also Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Egypt. He is the research guide of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, and 7 research scholars have successfully completed their research under his guidance. He is the content developer for the syllabus of the degree program at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and member of BOS in English at 5 reputed autonomous colleges across Maharashtra. He is one of the BOS members in English at Savitribai Phule Pune University, Pune, and Rashtrasant Tukodoji Maharaj Nagpur University, Nagpur. He has chaired technical sessions, plenary sessions, and keynote speeches in different states, nations, and international conferences and webinars. He has also delivered 10 lectures as a resource person at UGC, HRDC, AICTE, UGC Stride Centers of various reputed universities. He has delivered 20 talks as a keynote speaker, resource person in various international, national, state level conferences, seminars, and webinars. He has presented research articles at the Language Institute, Thammasat University, Thailand, by UGC Travel Grant. He has also presented his paper in 20th English in South Asia Conference organized by National Institute of Education, NIT, NTU, Singapore, and Singapore Association of Applied Linguistics, Singapore. He has organized more than 75 national and international webinars during lockdown, and he has published and presented various research articles in national and international referred journals. The books which, again, he has edited, the list are like this: The Creative Writers on Indian English Novelists, Emerging Issues in the English Language Teaching, English language and literature teaching, trends, techniques, methods, and approaches, role of ICT in English language teaching and learning, observations, and ruminations. Higher education in India, issues, innovations, challenges, and remedies, literature and cinema, literature and culture, a global perspective. He has co-authored the book entitled An Introduction to Soft Skill, published by Macmillan Education India Private Limited. He has evaluated more than 50 PhD theses and MPhil dissertations of well-known universities across India. His areas of interest are ELT, linguistics, and MALL, CALL, pragmatics, Indian writing in English, and e-content development. So if I continue, it will stretch for another 15 minutes. I'll stop there itself. Thank you, Mote, for being part of this seminar. So he is the owner, publisher of the Langlet Journal, and which is very famous. As I told you, I invite him to come up on the stage and receive our honor. Again, we were going to felicitate Prashant Mote now. I want him to come up on the stage. I want the Madam Vice Chancellor, please, to felicitate Prashant Mote.
Vote of thanks next to technical session. Last vote of thanks. ಇದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ Thank you, Dr. Mote, for receiving a felicitation, and I also thank the dignitaries. I also thank the dignitaries for doing the honor of felicitation Dr. Prashant Mote. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the last part of the program, last but not the least. I now request Dr. Vinuta P. Kundri, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you is such a prayer that cannot be seen or touched. It must be felt by heart. I feel honored and privileged to get the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. Words are not enough to thank the constant guidance and support to shape a two-day national conference on prisms of psychology on the literary realm. I, on the behalf of the organizing secretary, Dr. Shrikant, the coordinator, Dr. Manjunath P., and the organizing committee members, convey deep gratitude to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharanappa V. Alse, in his absentia, your constant help and guidance that radiated a source of energy within us, sir. My special gratitude to Professor Amy Upadhyaya, Vice Chancellor of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar State Open University, who accepted our invitation and traveled all the way from Gujarat to attend our national seminar. Thank you, Madam, for joining us. My sincere thanks to Dr. Ajanta Sarkar, Professor of English, School of Social Sciences and Languages, VIT University, Vellore, for her informative speech on the subject of this seminar. Thank you for joining us, Madam. I also thank the Registrar, Professor K.B. Praveen, in his absentia, who approved the necessary administrative documents for the seminar to be held at our KSOU campus. He has supported in all possible manner to organize this conference. My special thanks to Dr. Lakshmi N., Dean Academic, for her gracious presence. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Prashant Moti, Editor-in-Chief of the UGC-approved journal Langlet, for publishing all the papers submitted by paper presenters from various universities. Thank you very much for getting associated with the Department of English at KSOU. I would like to thank Dr. Shrikant, Chairman of English Department, and Dr. Manjunath P., Chairman of Psychology Department, for their efforts in organizing this national seminar. An event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling months in advance. They have joined hands to organize this seminar. Thank you, sir. We have been fortunate to be supported by a team of highly driven and devoted organizing committee members. I cannot thank everyone enough for their commitment and willingness to take on responsibilities that go beyond their comfort zones. I am really grateful to all the faculty members in both the English and Psychology departments who have always supportive and motivated. I am pleased to announce the ongoing assistance provided to ensure the success of this event. I also want to express my heartfelt gratitude to the non-teaching staff members of the departments, particularly English. It would have been impossible to organize without their assistance. Last but not the least, I would want to thank the press and media for their warm support. If time is money, then today you have spent millions for us. Thank you to everyone who have come all the way to Mysore to attend our 2-day national seminar. I suggest the faculty members, research scholars, UG and PG students from our university and all the participants to attend the seminar on both days to ensure the event's success. Thank you one and all. Have a great day in our campus.
Thank you. We are winding off the inaugural session. I request all of you to kindly take a 10 minutes brief tea break and resume for this technical session immediately after 10 minutes. Kindly. Thank you one and all.
I request the colleagues of both the departments, my colleagues, to come here on the stage for a photo, for a group photo with madam.